Hi, everyone. We are so excited to do Place at the Table today, our regular conversation. We have Rebecca Renard Wilson joining us. We just did a quick test run that was not really working, but we're hoping that the internet gods are going to cooperate with us right now. So, Rebecca, if you're there, you can jump in. For those of you who don't know, we'll definitely give her an opportunity to introduce herself, but she was our incredible executive director for several years and made such a tremendous impact on the work of Contratiempo, our articulation of our mission, our vision. She's a fierce writer, thinker, badass organizer, mama artivist, Afrofuturist, nowist. We will talk about all of that and all of the incredible work that she's still doing and continues to do and continues to develop. So just really excited to have Rebecca on. I will say that we are starting to do these conversations about every other week, and that has to do more just with the fact that my kids are starting to do homeschooling. So it's definitely not homeschooling, sorry, distance learning. So I need to be a little bit more on with them, which is making it more difficult to do a weekly conversation. So we're going to be doing bi-monthly instead of weekly. Yay, it
Yay!
worked! I love it.
Oh my gosh, it's like being in this void of like, what's happening?
I'm like, I know it's going to work. It's going to work. It's
And I'm sitting here holding a phone in like a corner of my house
of
because I'm
course.
like, I want stable Wi-Fi connection.
Well, I'm doing the same, and I'm of course in the room furthest from Luca's naps because I'm trying to. It's
I get it.
always like like really be as quiet as I can and like healthy so that I don't wake up my sleeping 4-year-old about to stop taking naps
I
again.
was gonna say you were lucky that your 4-year-old is still taking naps. My 3-year-old like ditched him at 2.
Yes,
She was like, nah, there's too much living to be done.
that's it. He was like nap, snap, whatever.
Right, right.
Oh, it's so good to see you. Oh
It's good to see you too. We haven't actually talked in like a
forever.
year. Yeah.
Well, when I text you and you said that things are crazy, I'm like, every single day is just like, it's a wild ride. And
Yeah.
and so just even being able to, like, I literally have these conversations, Rebecca, so that I am forced to connect and have adult conversations with
Right.
fierce women who I love and I'm excited to connect.
Yay.
And I
Let's do it.
I wouldn't do it if I'm just like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna be in the rigmarole of everyday life, but this allows us to make the commitment.
Yeah, it's one of the coronavirus gifts,
Yes.
you know. Like
Well,
if we have to give gratitude, let's
yeah,
give gratitude for the gifts of like slowing down and like being creative and figuring out how to connect, or just realizing you need to connect,
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
And figuring out how to like, I mean, I just think it was so funny. I was like cleaning my kitchen table this morning, and I was just like the kind of just like those moments of like I'm cleaning and clearing in my space in a way that's different than I feel like I did before. There's like this, I don't know, private. I think it's like because I'm at home all the time. There's this sense of I'm nesting in a different way. Like I'm taking a better care of the environment
Uh-huh.
because I'm just like it's all I got.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't say that I've gotten there, like that's also why I'm in the corner of my house because everything else looks a hot
But
mess.
no, no, crazy. Of course. Well, I am so excited to get to have you in this on this platform, but also just get to connect with you, like selfishly get to connect with you today. Um,
Yeah, me too.
but I'm super excited for you to just share like a little bit about your journey, who you are, Rebecca. I kind of introduced yourself, introduced you before you got in, but just like who you are and a little bit about your journey, how you wound up where you are, and then what you've been doing. Like, what have you been up to in the last several years that we've not been seeing each other every single day like we were seeing each other before.
Right. So I guess a good good place. I'm like, what am I doing? Um, where am I? So it's really interesting. I've been doing a lot of thinking about this. I am writing a book right now,
Of course you
and
are.
it's actually two books that I'm writing like simultaneously because that's just kind of how it's flowing.
Right.
And I've never written a book before, but I've always like thought of myself as a writer. Like
Oh,
ever since I was a kid, I was like, I'm a writer, and I used to write these like prolific short stories, and I used to like win little kid prizes for them and stuff. And then when I went to college at Oberlin, where we met, that all just got like sucked out of me. I
mm.
see somebody throwing up hearts. Were those hearts for Oberlin? Or those hearts for
I think
writing?
the
I don't
hearts
know.
were you.
I don't know, but this is cool. I've never been on IG Live, so it's like there's lots happening. My ADHD brain is like, what do I follow? What do I track?
Well, I should
So,
actually also say that if people do comment, just like in your answering any comments, just read them out loud because when we video, like the video afterwards, you don't see the comments in the way.
oh,
So
okay,
just
okay.
make sure you repeat them. So
Okay. So anyway, when I started college, that just totally got like sucked out of me because I was like writing academically, and I've been doing a lot of thinking recently around like internalized racial inferiority complex, or not complex, or just like internalized racial inferiority,
yeah,
and thinking a lot about because I'm writing about that for one of my characters in the novel. And
so
like
it's a
thinking about how
novel.
the it's a novel. Yeah. So it's not nonfiction. It's
That's
it's
amazing.
it's novels. Yeah. And and I've been like living these characters' lives, and just like dreaming about these characters, and it's
Love it.
phenomenal. That's all I want to do. Like that is literally
Mm-hmm.
all I want to do. But I also have a day job that is very intense. So I'm gonna talk about the writing right now, and then we can talk about the
Yes.
intensity of other stuff. Um, but anyway, so one of the characters is like dealing with internalized racial inferiority, but
Mm-hmm.
isn't clear that that's what it is. Like she hasn't
Yeah.
been able to name that. But I was thinking about for myself how all throughout, not really my childhood before college, but when I actually like entered a really white environment,
Mm-hmm.
um, I had a much different perception of myself, and like I had so much less confidence in myself than I did when I was growing up in DC in like
Yeah.
an all black environment with black teachers, black councilmen, like
Yeah.
everything was
Yeah.
blackety black.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to Oberlin, and then I was in like this very intensely wealthy place, and
Yeah.
do not come from wealth at all.
Yeah.
I really was challenged by like figuring myself out,
Right.
and being able to like stand strong in my identity,
Mm-hmm.
or even like know who I was, like know what my identity was. And so
Right.
my identity as an artist, which I totally saw myself as an artist as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
got really challenged. I really struggled through that when I was at Oberlin, to the point that I did not take arts classes. I did not take writing classes.
Mm.
There was so much that I didn't do, not
Yeah.
because anybody told me that I wasn't worthy or wasn't capable, but that's what I told myself because now I'm in this environment with all of these like rich white kids that went to private school and,
Right.
like
And took
spent summers,
lessons to,
yeah, took
yeah.
lessons. And I'm like now, older me looking back on
Mm-hmm.
younger me just wants to like wrap me in love and say like, yes, this is the place where
You
you
are the
do that. Like,
truth. You are the
yeah.
truth. Yes.
And
Well, can I just stop you too?
uh-huh.
Because honestly, you said nobody told you you weren't, but I was told that I was not a real dancer at
Mm,
Oberlin. I mean, and like not those exact terms, but the way that I was treated, trying to move in and out of the African diaspora inside of the world, the way that I moved, the way that I was trained, the way like the environment that I came from, there was not space in a lot of those artistic kind of like frameworks that were set up by the departments that allowed for anything different from outside of the European canon. I mean, just
yeah.
let's be clear, because I think that the dance department was so problematic. The I know classical music and jazz and like things were pitted against one another in a way that was really not helpful,
Yeah. And
and all
that's
that.
criminal. Like I
It
really feel
is,
like that's
yes,
that's criminal.
yeah,
Um and I also like I reflect on how like I didn't know how to do college, you know,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of like I knew that I had to go to college, you know, like my parents went to college, they were first generation
Mm-hmm.
college students. So I knew, okay, like yeah, after high school I go to college, but like what is college? What is it for? I
Yeah.
didn't really know.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to take advantage of like or to even seek out advisors or
Mm-hmm.
mentors or
Mm-hmm.
that these adults that were there are people who I should be leaning on
Yes.
and calling on
Right.
to help guide me. Like
Yeah.
I just felt kind of like I was making it all up on my own.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot. And as I think about like my journey, and even when Stanley wrote, and she was like, "Hey, you know, would you want to be on this on Place at the Table?" And like the first thing in my head, I was like, "That's for artists." Like still, even this like conception of myself
Yes.
now as like I
Oh
am
my
a
God.
writer, you
You
know, like
are.
I still struggle with that.
Yeah.
So I I say that first because I think that says a lot about like my journey
Mm.
and why I'm enjoying and just like relishing the space that I'm creating for myself right now to
Yes.
actually live into what I've always known myself to be,
Yes.
but just had to it took like 40, I'll be 45 and like it took 45 freaking years for me to get here,
Ah.
you know? Um
Uh,
and I don't want anybody else to have like I don't want my kids to have to wait 45 years. I don't want
right.
anybody else to have to wait that long to to know that there
Yeah.
are like that we are in community with each other,
Mm-hmm.
that there are so many possibilities for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
that even like even if you don't see yourself necessarily reflected in you know the term artist or in the like
Right.
whatever other careers like
Right.
that is yours, that's yours for the taking or yours for the
Yeah.
making, yours for the
Yeah.
creating if it
For
doesn't
the
exist.
creating. Exactly.
So yeah, I
You are such an artist.
I totally am.
I don't even question
Oh, but
it.
here's the other thing.
An artivist. An artivist. You are.
So when I was working with Contratiempo, like every day I was surrounded by you and you know
Yeah.
like just like the dancers that and like artists and I was like y'all are artists and it really made me it really made me think again about like what an artist is
Yeah.
and that this is going to sound like really super basic but like an artist creates like
Yep.
doesn't like might yes think about creating but an
Mm-hmm.
artist creates in the same
Mm-hmm.
way that a writer has to write
Mm-hmm.
and so like as I've been writing I'm like oh shit like all these years when I was like yeah I'm a writer no I was an aspiring writer but now
You are
I see
creating with
yes
words.
and
Yes.
I'm like it's so much work and there's
Yes.
like so many things that I'm not going to say I'm struggling through them because that makes it sound like it's a bad like there's something yeah that's a bad thing. I'm not struggling, but I am connecting with the challenge
Yeah.
of it and I'm like oh my gosh like you know and I think about people like you know Toni Morrison and Octavia Butler and
Yes.
like how they build these whole worlds and like I'm building a world right now and then I think you know I think about like Joyous Justice I think about Agua Furiosa I think about any creative work that I've seen
Yeah.
and just like appreciating it on a whole different level now because it's not just you're creating a dance or yeah you created a story
Yeah.
but in order to really like write I have to know each character.
Yeah.
I have to know like what's in their heart, like what their
Yeah.
weaknesses are. I and oftentimes I take these walks at night
Mm-hmm.
because it's cool at night and it's hot as hell here
It
and
is.
I'm just like I'm gonna melt in the sun
Yeah.
and so I take these walks at night when it's like really cool outside and I become my characters and
Mm-hmm.
I speak them and I get into arguments with them um and then like by the time I always get disappointed when I get close to home like when I'm a block away from home
You're
I'm like
like
shoot
taking an extra shortcut, an
yeah,
extra long cut.
I want to take some more time because I'm like I just got to the good part, you
Yes.
know, and then I come home and I write it.
I
So
love it.
that's part of what I'm doing right now with
It is
myself.
such a, I mean, what you're describing is the creative process, right? It's generating, it's taking ideas, it's taking inspiration and voices and spirit and soul messages, and like channeling them through your fingertips on the computer, or or through your body, or
Yes.
through. I've also been thinking so much about how art making is so beyond like even what we do, like even what I individually do on stage, right? Like to put bodies and make decisions about lights and stage directions and all that. But that's just such a small part of like the creation of what it is to be an artist, and that like this moment in time right now, that so much of like even what my own work and trajectory has been about like curating, like literally curating and creating with voices and beings and connections and moments. Like, I mean, like literally this is art making, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like, right? Like conversation cultivating is
Totally.
part of this like creative work that is gonna give us our future, is manifesting new ways of thinking and being and existing in the world. And I just
Yes.
so I'm just
Ashe.
I'm so excited for us to be opening up, becoming more amplio about the way that we're thinking about artistic work. Because can you imagine if we were thinking in artistic frameworks in government and in policy and in
Mm-hmm.
and how different the world would be
Yep.
if we could really learn from these, like this like you're talking about future making, right? Or manifesting and
Yeah.
creating. That's
Yeah.
oh, it's so good.
Totally. And the other really cool thing about like the conversations I'm able to be in right now. So I work with the LA County Department of Arts and Culture on a lot of their like juvenile justice work, but it's really youth development work, but it's in like
Mm-hmm.
juvenile justice spaces. And there, so you know, COVID happened, and then of
Mm-hmm.
course like George Floyd, and so everything was like everything was just like excoriated,
Yeah.
like all of the stuff just
Oh,
came
God.
out. And what's been really great is like working with the Department of Arts and Culture. They're really like we're really engaged in this process of looking at how white supremacy culture like lives in our internal practice and in our
Mm-hmm.
like like external policies and programs and things like that. But the conversations that we're having now, like actually I just got off the phone, a Zoom conversation, and we were like really analyzing like how do characteristics of white supremacy culture like really show up in every little piece of what we do, and then
Mm-hmm.
the more important thing about like how do we create the antidotes to that. So we've been using
Yeah.
Tema Okun's that framework document that
Yeah.
she wrote, and we're like literally rewriting our organizational culture,
Oh, I
and
love it.
we're rewriting it from an anti-racism framework, but
Yes,
well,
LA
and
County.
and so anti-racism and liberatory. So not just
Mm-hmm.
like against a system, but like
Right.
what
What
is
are
the
you
way of being
creating?
that we want to actually create?
Right.
And I feel
So
like that
important.
those conversations are happening in all these other spaces. Like another group that I'm involved with is the Youth Justice Working Group, which
Mm-hmm.
is literally re-envisioning the youth development system for the county, and
Mm.
not a system. So like the official mandate from the board was to remove juvenile justice from under the Department of Probation and like put
Uh-huh.
it somewhere else.
Yeah.
But what we're engaged in, and the we is like community organizers. It's like a lot of young people who have been incarcerated.
Yeah.
It's their families. It's like county employees. It's
Mm.
therapists, gang intervention specialists, like
Yeah.
all of this really diverse group of people. And the first place that we started was like, what, like we don't want to just move this punitive system from one place and put it someplace else,
Yeah.
and like have it operate the way that it operates. Like
Right.
what is the vision for how we want to live? And so we entered it through this creative process of like
Mm.
storytelling and visioning.
Yes.
Like if we woke up on the day
On the
after the
other side.
revolution or what, yeah, like
Yes,
on
on the
the
other
other
side.
side, what would it be? And people were talking about like gardens and like, like waking up after having a full night's rest, and like
Yes.
drinking clean water, going out and
Mm.
picking kale to make their breakfast, and being
Mm.
able to sit with their children or their grandparents and like talk about the day, and then like going off
Yes.
and apprenticing with like an elder drum maker or whatever, like
Mm.
people were just
Yes.
sharing these
Oh
stories, and like,
God.
what does it smell like? And it's like that's the level of that is how
Oh,
like the arts and creation needs to live in our
yes.
everyday work.
Oh my
Um,
God.
and it's, yeah, it's so important. We just sit in these like stupid meetings all day and like automatons, just like perpetuating these systems that are
Yes.
so freaking traumatic
Yeah.
to our human spirit.
Yeah.
And
And
so like, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
it's so good. It makes me so happy you're doing what you're doing. Yes, Rebecca. It really does.
There's
I
things
feel
are
literally like
changing,
I'm being filled.
they're changing.
It's so good.
Yeah,
And it's so, I
yeah,
mean,
it's really
that
dope work.
these, it's so, and are you, I mean, are you feeling, because you're saying you're sitting in these meetings, but it sounds like these meetings are completely being kind of like cracked open in new ways. Or do you feel like is there a reception of like gratitude for these new ways of being, or are
Oh,
you pushing up
absolutely.
against resistance, or like, yeah, can you talk about
I
that?
think initially, yeah, so I've been at this for maybe like 10 or 11 months.
Okay.
Initially there was like this cohort of folks, that were over on the side, like, yeah, this is what we're gonna do. Oh, white supremacy culture,
Yeah.
and and then we would
You
like
got
share
former
things.
UBW people up in there.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So 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 there was like that faction of
Yes.
folks, and we would say things in staff meetings, or like even not just in the Department of Arts and Culture, but in other spaces.
Yeah.
Like I would say things, and there might just be kind of like silence. There might be some receptivity to it. But definitely over the months,
Mm-hmm.
and especially since COVID and since the isolation of COVID, I think people
Mm-hmm.
are just in a completely different space. And so,
Yeah.
so now, like I can definitely say that there is so much traction, and there's so much receptivity to
Mm-hmm.
these ideas of liberation, because it's like
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
freaking mask is being ripped off. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like
Yeah.
people see just how harmful
Yeah.
everything in our society, like every single system and structure that we
Yeah.
have. So it's like people are really like, waking up to the
Waking
moment,
up. Yeah.
and seeing that, like there's so few people who benefit from this system, and so
Mm-hmm.
many people who are harmed by the system. And
Yeah.
people are stepping into their power and to their
Yes.
sense of like, fuck out of here, like
Yeah.
that is not that's not how I want
It's
to be
not
living
okay.
anymore.
No, it's
Yeah.
not okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, I'm even noticing in lab school, I teach it. We every year kind of re-talk about our contract, and this year it's around anti-racism training and around the faculty and also staff, but also looking at Black liberation as a central tenet to what.
Mm,
And we've always been like interjecting all of that, but always feeling like we're in a constant dance of like pushing it too far
right.
and pushing people back. And now it's like, can you all come and do what you do, and like in a way
Right.
that like we are now allowing space for in a different way. And it just feels like there's a sense of I think I know for us in our school programs, that feels like it's like a relief. We get to finally actually just, it feels like there's so much less resistance right now,
Yeah.
and the things that we've been trying to do inside of class spaces and collaborations with teachers, that just it's possible now because
Right.
people are finally waking up to say, oh, actually this is really critical, we
Yeah.
need this. Yeah.
And there's not, like, I think even last year, to say that something is racist, or to call racism out, or to say white people, or to say
Mm-hmm.
black people, like just little things like
Yeah.
that culture has definitely shifted, and it's
Yeah.
shifted like quickly.
Yes.
And so now I've noticed that there's so much more like openness to hearing
Mm-hmm.
things in a different way than before. Like
Yeah.
people recognize that yes, you actually do have to say black people. Like yes, you
Mm-hmm.
actually do have to say anti-racism versus equity. Like
Yes.
there is a definite shift in what people are kind of like willing to
Mm-hmm.
hear.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a freedom in that. So for like those of us that have been doing work in
Yeah.
this space, it's just like, huh. At the same time, it's like, okay, Like, we've been talking about this for how many years, and now because you're
Exactly.
ready, we can do the okay. But okay, you
But
hold your
okay.
yeah, okay. Let's
Okay.
go there then.
Let's go there, please. It's true. I know. I'm not even gonna go there because that will get me irritated.
Right, right. Like meet people
Oh,
where they are.
meet people where they are for sure. So I want to hear. I would love to hear some of because I know one of the things you said you really would love to talk more about. I mean, it's funny because we're talking about it inside of all of it, but some of your thoughts about in terms of like what's happening. I know that you're around Afrofuturism, Afro nowism.
Mm-hmm.
I'm adding isms to it, but it's not ism. But then also thinking of like, you're hilarious because you're like, I've got this job and I'm writing a book and you're a mom. You were like, you're raising two human
Yes.
beings inside the world who are like
Oh, you froze.
incredibly bright, powerful.
Uh-oh.
It froze. Ah, it froze.
Yeah.
But you are mothering. You are mothering. You are raising these two incredibly powerful lights, who are your
Mm-hmm.
two little people. So how is that all in relationship to everything you're creating? Your third job. Let's talk about that one.
Oh gosh. Yeah. So right before I got on this call, um,
Total
Khalil,
meltdown.
yeah, what that happened. That did happen. So I've got, my 6-year-old Khalil and my 3-year-old Zuri. And Zuri, so
Her
so
spirit
Zuri's
animal is the bull.
one of Zuri's middle names is Yansa. And I remember I went to a Manji Santo probably like a year ago. It was like last summer. A Manji Santo
Yes.
came from Brazil, and I had like a session with her, and
Mm-hmm.
she was like doing a reading for me, and they say come with questions and all that. I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
any questions to ask because I was like I just kind of want to see where this goes.
Yeah.
So anyway, she asked kind of in a very frustrated. She's an elder, and she's just like, "Look, girl, I told you to come with some questions." So anyway, I was asking I was asking her. I was like, tell me about my kids. I don't know. So she said, okay, well, what's your child's name? So I tell her the name, Zuri Ashia Yansan Wilson. And she just stopped and looked at me. And she
She's
was
like,
like,
tú estás loca.
she's like, why did you do that? And and so and I told her, I was like, I want and so
You're like bringing
right.
down.
So the people on the call who don't know who Yansan is, so Yansan it is the Orisha who also goes by the name Oya, like
Mm-hmm.
warrior goddess.
Whipping up the storms.
Yeah, like yeah. So I wanted that energy for my
Yes.
daughter
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't know that she was going to be a she, and she's like still she can claim
Gender.
whatever
Yes,
identity she wants to
exactly.
claim.
Exactly.
But I knew that I wanted that identity for my child, and
Mm-hmm.
so I named her. And I didn't name her that as her first name because I was like, that might get me into too much trouble. But chose for one of her middle names, and she is totally living into that, like
Yes.
full on 5,000%. Like she is Yansan,
Yes.
and so yeah, it's like she literally wakes up every morning with like thunderbolts and you know, like cyclones, and she's just like, "Rah!" And she even will
Oh
like stand and she'll just be like, "Rah!" And then she loves like dancing
my
and
gosh. Uh-huh.
singing.
Yes.
She's like her own little spirit. Like she's yeah, but and it's challenging.
Yes.
It's challenging. It's challenging every aspect of me because
Mm-hmm.
I was upset with her about something. Like she's very strong-headed, very very bullish, and she's a Taurus
Mm-hmm.
also. So she's like all
Mm-hmm.
bull.
It's so
She's
funny. I was
like,
like, your spirit animal. I didn't even know that, but I'm like, yes, she's a
yes,
bull.
she's a bull. So she is Yansan
Yes.
with the water buffalo, like the bull, and she's
Yes.
a Taurus
Oh
bull.
my gosh.
Um, and and so anyway, I forget where I was going with this story, but
But you got a reading. You
so
got
I
a
was like,
reading.
I was upset with her about something, and it was like one thing after another, just like escalating, escalating, escalating on my part. She was cool. She was just like, I'm gonna just do what I do. Mom was escalating. So
Yes.
anyway, I was like, thinking to myself, like, I'm going to have to like give her a spanking. And I was just like, no, I don't want to give her a spanking. Like, I don't even know how to give somebody a spanking. Like, like what would that even look like? But I'm like, no, but something has to happen, because this is like my
Yes.
internal dialogue. Like, something has to happen.
Yes.
And I was driving in my car. I'm in the front seat. She's in the back, just like putting it, like laying it on thick, just like, uh. And so finally we get to wherever we're going. And I take her out of the car, and I did, like, okay, this is like, don't call CPS on me.
No.
Like, I like smack her butt,
Yes.
and I was just like, no, you can't do that.
Yes.
And then she just kind of looked at me like, are you finished? Like,
Ah!
she totally was just like,
She's like, are you done now?
and what, right. And I was like,
Is that all you got?
okay. I'm like, okay,
Oh
so
my
I have to
gosh.
completely rethink this one. Like,
Yes.
completely rethink this one.
Yes.
So anyway, that wasn't what you asked, but that was just like
No,
a
but I
long
love
story
it.
about
That's exactly what I asked.
like the energy that's in my house. And then I have a
Yes.
son, my son is 6, and Khalil, he has completely
Oh.
different energy. Like, he's so much more like calm
Yes.
tempered, and like fun, jovial, like
Mm-hmm.
wants to make people happy,
Yeah.
and so they're like not polar opposites, but it's like the yin and the yang.
But they are very, yeah.
And so, yeah, that's been, it's been really challenging to figure out how to like manage that for
Mm-hmm.
myself, how to create space to really like encourage them to live into, like, to fully live into who they are,
Mm-hmm.
and also create like parameters and boundaries
Yes.
for their
Yes.
safety, and for
Yes.
like for social acceptance to the, and
Yeah.
I say social acceptance, not like I want them to conform to
No,
the
but you're not trying to create a more difficult,
right,
lively living experience for them
right,
because they don't know how to navigate what's going to
exactly,
allow them to get through the world without
exactly.
without being like, a lightning rod.
Exactly. I love that. Like, how to navigate through the world, and like learn social cues and
Yeah.
respond to social cues, push back
Yes.
when they need to push back, when it's
Yeah.
like necessary.
Yeah. But
But
also know that sometimes you need to hold back and
right,
listen and,
right.
yeah.
And so that's hard. And then with COVID, there's no outlet for that.
Yeah.
Like I'm the outlet for that.
Hmm.
And
Yes. You are the lightning rod. You
right.
are the lightning-
Exactly. Like,
Yes.
I'm the thing that
Yes.
gets struck
Yeah.
a lot,
Yeah.
but yeah, with homeschooling, it's really difficult to manage it all,
Hmm.
because we weren't designed to manage it all.
No.
Like,
No.
wasn't ever designed to be this way. Um, and I would say that I'm privileged to be able to, like, be with Khalil with schooling, and I'm privileged to be able to have um, the
Flexibility.
challenge. Well, I'm privileged to have the challenge of, like, well, I have to work,
Yeah.
and I have to like mother at the same time.
Right.
Except that I don't necessarily think it's a privilege. I think
Yeah.
because I think that work is a right, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I am fortunate that in this COVID environment, I did not lose my right to a wage,
To
and
wage.
and
Yeah.
to be able to activate my creativity and my
Hmm.
brilliance towards
Hmm.
something for compensation. Like,
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
fortunate that I didn't lose that ability.
Yeah.
But I want to be clear that I don't think that's a privilege,
Yeah.
and I don't think anybody should feel privileged to have health care or a
Yeah.
job or any of the things that we need
Absolutely.
to be human. So,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
anyway,
Ashe.
I've been challenged. I've had the challenge of like, how do I be on meetings and get work done when I really just want to be present with my
Yes.
with my children, because that's what
Yes.
they're requiring of me.
Yeah.
You know.
Dawn is saying word. Yes,
Yes.
Dawn.
I, for some reason, am not seeing comments. They're not
Oh,
like
you're
scrolling
not?
up or
Okay.
whatever. It's
Okay,
just
I'm
like,
seeing them. So
yeah.
I'll
Okay.
translate them. So Dawn just said word.
Word.
I
Yes.
will say so we've been in 2 days of distance learning. Are you doing distance learning? Or are you
Yeah.
doing, you are,
Yeah.
so you're in,
So it's not
in school.
homeschooling, but essentially it is,
It is
because
homeschooling. I mean,
yeah.
it's homeschooling with a community.
Right.
I mean, an online community, pretty much.
Right.
Um, I mean, Sid has done an incredible. The last 2 days, he's been fully engaged in ways that I never imagined this was going to actually work. But I've been right next to him the whole time. Like, I don't know how I have not figured out how this is going to work with me. I'm like I'm trying to like multitask. Also, Luca's running
Yep.
around and trying like, so just trying to figure out like, how does this even work? How do you, I don't,
Yeah.
I'm kind of a little bit at a loss right now of like, I could see how it could work if I didn't have a job and literally like my job was just to be next to him during
Right.
this and to figure out how to like support the two of them. But that's not all it is.
Right. That's not the reality. Yeah.
It's not
I
the
feel the same
reality.
way. Like this morning, and I do have to say, like, super huge shout out to Grandma Betty. So my
Mm,
mother-in-law is very present in our lives, and so
yes.
she takes Zuri during the day,
Mm,
um, and
so
Robin and I
huge.
are with Khalil. Robin, is like teaching
Yeah.
online himself, and so anyway, today I had to lead a meeting. I had to lead like a team meeting this morning, and Khalil is on his class, like right
Yeah.
behind me. And then I
Yeah.
had to like move next to him, and he keeps wanting to like share his earbud with me, so because he wants me to hear, and and then
Yes.
I'm just like making these little signals to him, or like I'm putting myself on
Yes.
mute and saying things, and then there was a certain point where he was just like, I am done with you not being
Yes.
with me right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he left his iPad. He came over and sat on my lap.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, all right, y'all. Well,
This is what's
this is
happening.
it.
Yeah,
Like this is
exactly.
it. So,
Exactly.
yeah. And then there was a point where Zuri came home. I didn't even know she was home. It's like I see her and she's just like,
Yeah.
"Hey, mom!" Like in the middle of nowhere. It's like, "Mom!" Like, where'd you come from? So anyway, like that's what's
Ah,
happening over here, and that's just,
so amazing.
yeah, we just have to like give each other grace on it.
Yes.
Like I'm in so many meetings where I see um, children show up in the screen and
Yeah.
people go
Yeah.
off camera, and it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, how
People
can we
are just
how can we pretend that we
per-
can exist?
perfect timing.
Yeah,
It's like right.
Sid, what's up, Sid?
It's in there on the counter. It was literally, you're like, they children come into the screen. He literally walked through the door. I was like,
Uh-huh.
yes, perfect.
Yep. Yep.
He was hearing a little cue.
This is life.
This is life. No, it is. I think of so many of the times where I was holding Luca Orsid as a baby in these theaters where people would give me dirty looks for
Mm-hmm.
bringing children into the space where they didn't think they were welcome, or and how absurd that is right now. You're just like, you don't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
I
No
said,
choice.
but do they have clothes on? Sometimes they don't. Yes. That was the question.
Oh yeah, there have been
Yes.
plenty of like kid bombs, like Zuri
Naked
either
kid mom.
full on naked butt, or just like panties and like
Yes.
a Viking helmet. Like, like
I love it so much. No,
that.
it's so interesting. My two are very similar energies, but it's opposite. My oldest is that Chango energy, that
Uh-huh.
fire, like lightning fire,
Mm-hmm.
and then Luca is just like he's a light. I mean, it's our children live into their names, right? Like
Yep.
the bringer of light. He is really truly this little like fairy star
Yeah. He's
that
got such
floats
a
through the house.
beautiful smile and beautiful
Oh my
spirit.
goodness. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. So there's this like, I feel like sometimes when you also have this in ways they become more polar opposite because they're like filling in or they're pulling against one another in a way. So,
Mm-hmm.
but whoo, it's a
Um,
lot.
I was thinking about, so this is not changing the subject, still talking about children. I'm curious about like how you've been talking to Luca and Sid about like
Mm,
the racial, continuing racial injustice.
yeah.
Because I've been talking to Khalil, Zuri to some extent,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely to Khalil more and more. And he, like this school year is actually the first time that he's been in a predominantly white school environment.
Mm,
He's in public school, but it's a predominantly white public school. And it's just it's a different thing. And
yeah.
I've been one of the reasons that I'm really interested in like sitting with him too during school is so I can kind of gauge what's happening with
Yeah.
the
What's
dynamics between
happening?
the teachers and the students, and like gauge Khalil's comfort, and
Mm-hmm.
is he sensing things, and so
Yeah.
I'm like hyper aware,
Yeah.
hypersensitive to it. But I also noticed that when there was like that mass civil unrest
Mm-hmm.
after George Floyd was killed and Breonna Taylor and so many others. I'm trying to like explain to Khalil, and I see that he's like annoyed
Yeah.
by me explaining it, and I was
Mm,
like,
mm,
I wonder. And then I also read something that Marjani, another one of our Mama Artivist
yes.
friends, Marjani said that she's choosing to focus on Black joy
Mm-hmm.
and kind of save the resistance stuff for a little bit later, but like focus on
Mm-hmm.
Black joy and building up our children so that they are like just fully like proud and like
Yes.
holding this light that they have.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I know sometimes I'm all like rah 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 rah,
Yeah.
and I want you to know, you know. But so
Yes.
anyway, I've been thinking about that a lot. Like,
Yeah.
how do I shift? Like, what are the ways that I can be able to be present to this moment and
Mm-hmm.
like talk about what's happening in a way that really that doesn't turn my children off,
Yeah.
that doesn't make them like cynical, that doesn't make them hate being Black because they feel like they're
Yes.
going to be persecuted.
Yeah. Under attack all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I've been thinking about
Yeah,
that a lot.
I've been thinking I mean, obviously been thinking about it nonstop, and it's been really helpful to have these conversations too, because I feel like it kind of comes up in different ways every time I'm talking to all these mama artivists about what's going on. Many of them have Black children and also are like, you know, politically engaged in their lives and their and the work that they're doing already. So the kids in some ways are like swirling in this world where
Right.
it's not like just about what you're seeing on TV. It's about conversations that are happening where you're in earshot. But I will say the kind of two pivotal conversations that I had, I feel like were with Sabela and with Maya Jupiter,
Mm,
Aloe Black's wife,
mm-hmm.
I mean, she's Aloe Black's wife, but she's a badass artist, an amazing
Yeah,
woman
yeah.
herself. But she was saying a similar thing, like focusing on Black joy as like the tenant of what, you know, her kids are also a little bit younger. You know, Sid is 9. I mean, he's thinking about the plug in my phone. He's thinking about the world in a whole different way now, and engaging. I'm gonna go and plug in my phone. and and I do think that there's a way that there's a way also at our own family. You know, our family, the 3 months before the all this was happening, we were at the commemoration for my parents' friends who were killed by the Klan. So we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about, you know, it was 40 years ago that people were murdered. The cops were never served a day in jail. That story was literally the story we've been seeing over and over and over again. And so he has a relationship with that story already, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that that cops are not safe, they cannot be trusted, that there is not like when we're in trouble, we don't. That's not who we call. There's
Mm-hmm.
that conversation that has happened in our family because of that. But I do think that with both with Sabela and with Maya, both of what the things that they were sharing were like loving your children so deeply and full out is the most powerfully radical thing you can do. I think it's so
Yeah.
powerful, and it's definitely what I've been doing my very darndest to try to like lean into as much as possible, as much as like, you know, when you're with them 24/7 to, you know, I'm tantruming sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
like
For
stressing
real.
out.
I have tantrums
So,
daily.
so, um, but I think, you know, between there's so many books. I mean, we're reading books constantly about things that are. I've really beefed up our home library to not just be about civil rights and slavery.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
so many more stories and so many other narratives and people and parts of Black history that is like not that's just like absent from. So I've been really
Oh
focused
yeah.
on that too, like how am I filling all these gaps that our society is leaving inside of their own sort of self identification of what does it mean to be Black. And so
Yeah.
that's something also I've been really like, I'm just like, Chamel's whole street dance activism thing that's happening right now, the 28 days of
Mm-hmm.
for Black liberation. That's been such a huge resource, and we've also the kids have been involved in it also, watching some of the videos and like being inside of some of the conversations, because I feel like, again, just like it just being something that is a part of every day, instead of it feeling like this thing where I'm trying to have a heavy conversation about politics, right? Like,
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
couldn't do that. I used to, because my parents did that to me. I mean, my parents were like, we're sitting down and we're talking about slavery, you know, like.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think that's where my leaning had been. That's
Yes,
where my leaning had been because I'm like, no,
we
you
need to
need to get
go.
the right story. You need to get the true story. And
Exactly.
then when I started noticing Khalil just being like what? I don't care. And then I bought him like a backpack that had a black boy on it, and he was like, I don't want that. And I was like, okay, yeah, I need to flip this
Yes.
because I think like I don't know why he said I don't want that. Like I don't want to make a
Resistance.
bunch of assumptions
Yeah.
about it, but it definitely was a moment where I was like, okay, I really need to kind of rethink. Am I laying it on too thick about the injustice part and I've always like talked about it in also in terms of who the real freedom fighters are. And like on Independence Day, we talk about Interdependence Day, and we like constantly we're talking about who our foremothers and who our forefathers are, and our four other spirited folks are who have engaged in not just resistance, but who have really lived their lives to create the kind of world that we want to see. So that's definitely been like a really predominant narrative.
Mhm.
um so yeah, I feel good about that, and I think that that's like but in talking about those struggles and those people, there's
Yeah.
also talking about like what it is that they were fighting against
Yeah.
and like why. um
We've also
but
going down back to also like colonization and indigenous genocide. Like, what is it? Why are we not celebrating Columbus Day? Why,
right.
like, those kind of things? I feel like we're, probably ad nauseum. I mean, I'm always incorporating, weaving in things like that inside of conversation. And also, there's a with Sid especially. I feel like if I lay it on too thick, it's one more thing for him to resist
Yeah.
back against. So I'm also like, just in a way, just being like, these are the realities that the world is, and not trying to be like, you have to.
Yeah.
It's like, this is information and you have access to it. This is information. This is what I think about it. This is what your father thinks about it. This is what's happening in the world. I mean, we didn't watch the George Floyd video. I didn't show
Oh
him the
God.
video,
I didn't watch it. I'm like, what's.
but I did explain to him what happened to George Floyd,
Mm-hmm.
and that why this was to Sydney, not to Luca,
Mm-hmm.
and explained, why that was such a pivot. Like, it was this the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, we got to talk about that
Right.
metaphor, right? Like, that it was like the thing that finally tipped a scale,
Right.
and literally like waiting to be tipped for many, 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 many years. I mean, again,
Yeah, hundreds of years. Yeah.
hundreds of years. It's the same story over and over again. But this one story made it like
Mm-hmm.
tip things in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's yeah. I think it's yes, and I think it's
Yeah. But I think what you said about kind of like providing the menu, like here's the menu of ideas, menu of books, menu of whatever.
mhm.
And rather than like forcing something on, and that's, I mean, that's like a parenting, that's a liberatory parenting like concept
Yeah,
is like offering your child things
yeah,
and letting them come to whatever they want to come to, but like creating the space, supporting them in whatever decisions they come to or thoughts they come to,
yeah,
but providing the horizon,
yeah.
for them to be able to look at and operate in. So yeah, that is really important.
It's
I'm always like, yeah, I'm always trying to get like
yeah.
parenting tips.
Well, I will.
This is
So
parenting.
when the Sydney just started really reading, like, full on, like, goes to his room and reads for like an hour and a half by himself, like, doesn't want anybody. So I've been like slipping the Malcolm X graphic novel, or like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Coats, like Black Panther, things that are probably way beyond his.
No, they're not way beyond him.
but he's no, but he's like very interested and very like he's in it. So that's
Yeah.
it's just like just again putting things around that he's gonna read, and then he's like interested, and then he asks me questions, and then it comes up and we talk about things.
Yeah. But
But
like, yeah, creating that rich environment for them
mhm,
to be able to like mine and get whatever it is that they need to get, and then come to you for questions or whatever. But
mhm.
yeah, yeah, I like that.
Well,
Um,
also say, and I know we're about to run out of time, but before all of this, it used to be an argument that Sydney and I would get into that he was black. Like he would have like a full on like, no, I'm
did
not
he say
black.
he was brown? He's like,
I'm
I'm
brown.
brown.
I'm
Yeah.
brown. And since COVID, since I've been in charge of my children's education now. My child admits that he's black and
Mm-hmm.
admits he's like proud of being black. I was like, good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing we can check on because literally I was like, this is not okay. We're not, how are you going to school? And I will say, Rebecca, it made a difference. We went to public school and
Mm-hmm.
there's many of his teachers are black. His teacher, in third grade was black. Like he needed to see himself reflected. And I feel like even though we loved our school, lab school was not reflective. The teachers were
Mm-hmm.
of of him feeling good about being black, right? Like that he was not seeing himself that way. And so I think
Yeah.
it was really, it was a
Yeah.
powerful shift for our family to go to public school and to be him seeing himself reflected more. And then also going into quarantine and having me control his
Right.
conversation.
That's probably a really big factor in it. Yes.
We need to figure out around here
Yeah.
as one of them. So
I would love to like I've always really wanted to start my own homeschool,
yeah,
and I think about my mom and like I don't really think I learned anything in school. I cannot name one thing that I learned in school from kindergarten through 12th grade, except my junior year of high school when my teacher introduced us to Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States. Like that was like I was like, oh yeah, bring it. Like yeah, this is cool. And then typing. Those are the only like two things I think I got from school. Everything else was my mother.
yeah,
And I loved mom school. Like I loved, and it wasn't like anything formal, but it was like taking us to museums and going to the library and learning how to budget and like budget for our summer whatever. She's like, okay, we got $50 this summer. Like that's it. Y'all got to figure out how to spend it. Like but I loved that, and I always think, I always think that I was not made to live in a capitalist society. I like my spirit was not made for this society, and I always want to move. Like I'm always talking to Robin, like, can we just move somewhere else? Like, can we just move to Ghana? Let's move like somewhere else, but anyway, so it's spiritually difficult for me and has always been since birth to exist in this country.
yeah,
And what I'm really interested in, well, okay, I'll say I've also been very like I need financial stability. Like that's something because of how I was raised, um, and the conditions that I was raised in. Being financially stable has been like critically important to me, and so I've always leaned towards being an employee versus doing doing anything on my own. And so like the whole idea of not knowing where my next meal is going to come from or paycheck is going to come from is like really hard for me. And I think that's part also of why I didn't go into I didn't listen to what my heart has been telling me about being an artist because I couldn't really I couldn't connect those two things to build financial stability and being an artist.
yeah.
Like I know it's possible, but I couldn't make those connections when I needed to make those connections. And so anyway, I've always had these dreams of like having a wealthy partner or like a sugar daddy who, who would allow me to, like be home and create art. And like, if I had children when I was younger, thinking if I had children, like raise my children the way, homeschool them. But anyway, thinking about like Black futures and Black now. So the novels that I'm working on are one is set in the present,
Mm,
but feels very like futuristic, and then the other one is it's set seven generations into the future. But they're both dealing with this idea of like, how do we create freedom for ourselves within a society that is literally trying to kill us. So that's one of the questions. And then like the question for the future, the future novel is centered around this idea of how we transmit trauma, like, we transmit trauma genetically, or that we inherit the trauma of our ancestors. And so this book is looking at the flip of that. It's looking at like what happens if instead of trauma being passed down from our ancestors is actually the resilience that's being passed down. So instead of trauma being the thing that like imprints on our DNA and is causing all of these like physical challenges, like what happens when that shit is flipped? And when we get to the point where we're like, oh no, I have the memory of like all of the incredible badass stuff that my ancestors did, like, but that's encoded in your DNA. Like, what happens then? Like, oh, it's on. Like, the possibilities are just like we've literally broken out of this dimension, and that's a concept in novels. Like, it's set in the fourth dimension, and the access point to the fourth dimension is through creation. It's through art. So yeah, I'm really having fun writing this one. Oh my gosh. But
So excited. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
but the thing is that we have the answers now.
We do.
Like, we have all of the answers right now, and that's why like I am in love with Black futures. And it's also like we have, like, it's Black now. Like, I'm reading about all these homeschool communities that have been in existence for decades, or like similar kinds of communities that have been in existence for decades. And like all of like the grind and the communalism and the creation, like we have existed. There have been alternate grids that we've existed on for centuries. And so all of the answers are here. We just need to open our listening, and we need to be able to tap into our intuition and tap out of the fear, so yeah,
Rebecca, in your regular form, you always end with a mic drop. That was a quote for the entire conversation. It is. It's like leaving that fear and just like, Tinvana said yes, I formed a virtual class called Resilient Kids.
Ooh.
We're doing it, and it's happening. And the Instagram gods are going to kick us off in a second.
Okay.
Perfect hour. So we got an and a half to 2 minutes. But I just want to thank you so much. I love you so much.
Thank you. I love you too.
What a gift to get to spend an hour with you. And we need to do this more. I live down the street from you. So
I know. You have to text me your address. Yes. And we'll do a drive-by.
When I get off. I love you so much, and just so proud of you and all the incredible stuff you're doing. And I can't wait to see Zuri.
In all of her glory. Yes.
But thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Ana Maria.
And thank you for who you are, for the work of Contratiempo too. I mean, you've been such an incredible influence in our ability to just articulate our vision and mission in the world, and just all of what you contributed the years that you were here. It resonates. It's still resonating. So
Ashe, thank you. And I will say that Contratiempo, like, my experience there was because of that brought me to this point. It was kind of like the tipping point for me to be able to to step into my artist, and to do it in a way that feels right to me. So thank you. Yeah.
I love you. Much love and so many quotable moments, Rebecca. Dawn, yes.
Oh yeah. Hey, Dawn.
I have to go back through this video and just be like, bleep, 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 bleep. We're gonna. And Jocelyn, yes.
All right.
Thank you all so much for joining us.
How do I exit out of this? I don't know.
I'll close this out. But
okay.
Before we leave, I haven't seen you in Dancing Familias every Wednesday.
I know, because I'm always working.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it's fun. We have such a good time. So
I know. I had fun with Stanley. I did it. I've done it twice. I've so loved it the times that we did it.
Well, I just now have set up another cam for Luca, so he has his own cam. So he's like,
Cameo.
so please join us. And then also Thursday at 12 o'clock, we have our class with Delphi every single week. We love you all. Thank you for tuning in. And I will also send you this recording so you can share it out to folks.
Yay. All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Have a great
Much
day.
love.